We're back now with Senator Barbara Boxer, a Democrat from California and one of the most vocal opponents of the war in Iraq. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You have heard the reports this morning that ISIS is on the move, capturing more towns. Is sending 300 military advisors going to be enough?
Oh, listen, I agree with the president. We're not going to go back into that war again, ever. The fact is, what we're seeing now is an outgrowth of that bad policy the neocons got us in, that crowd on false pretense that said, go in there. And as a result, ISIS was born. Let's face that fact. And then in 2007, when Vice President Biden, then Senator Biden, and I was on the Foreign Relations Committee, he was my chairman, suggested we have 3 semi-autonomous regions, the Bush administration and the neocons said, absolutely not, even though we had more than 70 votes for that. So as a result, we have Maliki, who hasn't included the Sunnis. ISIS moved in to fill the void. So let's be clear on this. And now they're turning it into kind of a religious civil war. So as far as I'm concerned, the advisors there, as far as I know, are there to really give an assessment of what's happening on the ground. That's very important for us. And also they have a counterterrorism mission, which I voted for after 9/11. We need to go after the terrorists who are a threat to us.
But critics argue that the president essentially has helped ISIS by omission, that by not acting in Syria, that ISIS was strong enough then to cross the border into Iraq, and this is the result.
Well, it's the opposite. The hawks were saying, arm Syria, arm Syria. The president knew that ISIS was in Syria and didn't want them to get control of the weapons. So that's just completely false. And I will say, the big surprise I think the president would admit to, and I think is a fact, is the Iraqi army that we spent $23 billion training just melted away, melted away in the face of just hundreds of ISIS. So we have a national security interest here. I agree with Senator Rubio, and I agree with, absolutely, and the President of the United States. No combat counterterrorism mission is critical to us. And therefore, as long as those advisors are not in harm's way, and they are not in harm's way, they can assess the situation and we can conduct counterterrorism. That's the key. Look, Nora, the Iraqi people had a chance of a lifetime. I didn't vote to send those for that war. It's one of my proudest moments. Only 23 of us in the United States Senate, because it was based on false pretense. And we unleashed a horror that we're seeing today. But the bottom line is we do have a counterterrorism mission, and I support that mission.
And Vice President Cheney said this week, rarely has a U.S. president been so wrong about so much at the expense of so many.
That is sick when you really look back at the record. It was Vice President Cheney and Condi Rice working for George W. Bush and Rumsfeld and all those folks. It's just like, you know, a nightmare come back to haunt me, just frankly, who were basically telling us, get right back in there again. The American people don't want it, the president doesn't want us, and the saner voices in the Senate and House don't want it. We do have a national security interest in preventing another 9/11. The Iraqis had their chance. They blew it, and I think right now they've got to figure out if they can form an inclusive government.
Senator Barbara Boxer, good to have you here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Lovely to be with you.
And we'll be right back.